trash bags, what's going on? It's Landon Remixes here, and it's time for a review of this new remix album from Pendulum, appropriately titled The Reworks. And today I've got the Wonky Angle here. He has covered all of Pendulum's studio albums. I recently covered In Silico, and I figured it would be fun for us to get together to do a review of this new remix album, just to talk about it. And I don't think I've ever done a collaborative video on a remix project before, so I thought it'd be cool. But yeah, I guess let's get right into this. So I think what's important first is to define each of ourselves what makes like a good remix, what makes a great remix.
I've got kind of a weird relationship with remixes and remix albums, because, I mean, I do like the idea of remixes, and, like, they're good for, like, one-off tracks, but, I typically don't like remix albums, because I feel like they don't typically work well as a whole. I'm typically just gonna keep, like, a couple of tracks, if that.
Yeah.
And I think really the only remix album that I've heard that I liked all the way through was the Orbs See Better See. And even that, like, it's not the greatest thing they've ever done either, so... And I've heard some remix albums, like, I think there was one I heard of, like, Pretty Lights Color Map of the Sun remixes, and I didn't really like anything on there, so... And I really liked that particular album that it come from. And just in general, I would rather listen to the original material over a remix, but I will admit that there are plenty of remixes out there that I have enjoyed a lot.
I totally get that too, because it's like when an artist goes in to put together a remix album, it's like the artists that are doing the remixing aren't trying to work together, so everything kind of just becomes a little bit messy. The only thing that really ties it together is usually going to be the relationship that the original songs had together. And in the case of an album like this, it's like these are Pendulum songs that are kind of all over the place. It's not like a remix album of Immersion. It's not a remix album of any particular
it's just
studio
all three.
album. Yeah, it's all three. Plus, even what's that? There's one song on here that's not on any of the albums. I think
Vault.
I think it's Vault. Yeah,
Vault.
That Moby remix.
It's
so
just
it's interesting that they decided to
B-side from Hold Your
like
Color,
that,
I think.
In terms of remixes that I usually enjoy, like the remixer has to blend in their unique original take, like original style into it, but typically, if I'm going to enjoy a remix, it's gotta kind of carry a similar vibe and flavor to the original song, if that makes sense. Like if it's something totally, completely out of the park, then I'm usually not going to be into it, unless, of course, I didn't really care for the original song. Then sometimes it's good to get a swap in there. But like, did you ever listen to like Feed Me's remix of Strobe by Deadmau5? I thought that you should definitely check that one out. That's like a fantastic like electro remix of Strobe that came out a couple years ago. And
I'm kind of with you with remixes being like the original. If you can kind of capture the original, that's cool, I guess. But I think what's more important to me when it comes to remixes is actually the person making the remix and not what they're remixing. Because you can have a remix of a track I really like, and then the person doing the remix can screw it up.
No, I absolutely agree with that.
And I also do tend to like remixes more that bring something new that wasn't in the original.
I totally agree there too.
Yeah, so like, I mean, if it's just kind of like it's the original, but you add one thing, like.
Typically I'm not going to care in that case either.
What did you think of the Reworks as a whole?
So, honestly, I was a bit disappointed with this project. I can't say this is the first, like, Pendulum content we've gotten in years, like, a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time, and this is the first thing. But I don't know, this doesn't feel like it was a high-stakes thing in the first place.
No, I don't think it necessarily was either. I mean, this is just kind of an in-between project, because I think Pendulum's doing an EP or two next year, or like later this year. I think Rob Swire announced that, and this was kind of just going to be the in-between kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
It's not like I was building this album up to be anything insane, but I think given that a lot of the names that are on it and things like that, I personally am a fan of like a good chunk of the people remixing on here, but like I ended up being honestly a bit disappointed. And Also, as the remixes were rolling out just one by one, I also, like, I think I remembered I tweeted, like, a few weeks ago, like, is this a joke? Because everything has just been so lackluster so far.
Yeah.
It just hasn't been good.
I am totally with you. This album, it wasn't bad, but it was aggressively mediocre.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way.
Absolutely.
There's a couple of good tracks that I guess I enjoyed. But for the most part, if this feels like it was thrown together in like 2 weeks. It does.
Yeah.
It feels really rushed, and a lot of people really phoned it in. There's just a lot of mediocre stuff on this, I would say.
So starting out, we've got that Hold Your Color remix by Noisia. Do you listen to a lot of Noisia music, or? I
don't. But while we were waiting for this for schedules to match up, I did actually listen to the entire Outer Edges album, and I thought that was pretty good. I mean, I didn't think it was an amazing album, but it's one that's like a lot of people have been bugging me to talk about.
Yeah.
And I do think it's a little overly long and overstays its welcome, but I think that they had some good ideas in there, and like they have their own unique style, and I think it's a pretty good project. But
yeah, I think the biggest thing about Noisia is that they always, at least with their original music, they're really consistently like creative with their sound design. They use really kind of wonky, off-kilter elements, and they definitely brought this to Hold Your Color. I think the problem with this remix, I don't know how you felt about this, but I think the problem with this remix is that it's just way too heavy for its own good. Like, the original Hold Your Color, in my book, it was kind of more like an atmospheric, I mean, most of the... Really,
most of Hold Your Color is like that.
Pretty atmospheric. But this remix just goes for a totally different vibe, uses very slimmed down amounts of the vocals from the original, and then...
Yeah, I was not huge on this one either. It's not that I thought Noisia were like a bad match for Hold Your Color, though I can see where you're coming from, but I just thought they phoned it in. Feels like a bit of a buzzkill, and at the very end, they even have like the vocals are out of sync with the beat, and it's just like, what are you even doing? Yeah, I didn't like that.
Yeah, it just seemed kind of lazy too, like, and I think the first drop is pretty much a copy-paste of the second one, and like, I don't know. Compared to Noisia's originals, it's like this one just feels really lackluster, I guess.
Yeah, and then the Knife Party remix of Blood Sugar, which is the second track, that's probably the worst one on here. Yeah, like, on top of that, like, there's a whole bunch of tracks on this album where, like, you hear, like, a vocal or a synth riff from one of the original songs, and it's slowed down so that it will fit in other people's DJ sets, I guess, and it always sounds really off. Even when Knife Party are doing it themselves right here, it's just like, this sounds really wrong. Just here, even though it's just a synth riff, it's just like, no, you're doing it wrong. And
this one felt like extremely lazy. And I remember Rob Swire tweeted this. I think he said something about like everyone was giving him too much flack for this remix because not everyone should expect the Sistine Chapel or something with every remix. But it's like, compared to Knife Party's had some great originals, and it's like when you're talking about the first ever like Knife Party Pendulum crossover kind of thing happening ever since like Knife Party started, and it's this remix which just sounds so incredibly lazy and like just copy paste the riff from the original, and then like the intro of this song sounds just like DIMH from the Abandoned Ship album. And then it's got some elements of and some other tracks from Abandoned Ship too, but it's like it sounded like they spent about an hour on this, and then just okay, let's just put this on the album.
This definitely felt like the case for a lot of these. Like there are some that were at least well produced, and some that just don't really offer anything for me to talk about. Like the 9,000 Miles remix doesn't really give me anything to work with. It's not.
I mean, no, I'd kind of sort of agree with that. It's the first remix on the project that I didn't feel disappointed with, I guess I'd say. I think I may have mentioned in my review of In Silico that 9,000 Miles. I know you really enjoyed that track. So I
9,000 Miles is one of my all-time favorite Pendulum tracks for sure. But
I enjoyed the original as well, and I kind of got a similar vibe with this one. It's just like a simple progressive house remix of the song. It's nothing absolutely like mind-blowing, but it was the first one that wasn't like offensively bad to me on the project.
Yeah, it's not awful, but
Yeah.
it's not even remotely as good as
Yeah,
the
no.
original.
I would agree with you on there.
And then as for Skrillex's version of the island, oh boy, you know, I'll give Skrillex credit for this. It's at least a good idea, because I feel like what Skrillex did with this remix of the island is he fixed one of my big problems with the island, or if you want to call it a problem, in that the original has nothing to do with an island. This version does.
Yeah, no, I would kind of agree. It's more tropical, more, I don't know, Jamaican.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a reggae type track.
I will say that one thing that I do really enjoy about this remix, and I don't care for the drop. I mean, Skrillex future bass. It's like this style is so overdone.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to Skrillex. It's like I used to really like this guy. He hasn't released anything I've liked in years. What the heck?
Yeah, I do enjoy this remix outside of the drop a bit. I like that it has reggae flair to it because I feel like one of the places where Pendulum and Skrillex meet is that genre, and in terms of like their influences, because a lot of Skrillex's like early tracks, I mean, obviously Make It Bundem, like super reggae influenced, and then on the first Pendulum album especially, there was a lot of that.
There was Tarantula.
So it was like
basically.
I liked that he kind of put that flavor into this in a way that the original didn't really capture. And I think the vocals actually work pretty well with that too, like surprisingly well.
I think the production was pretty rushed as well. Like even the parts with that isn't the drop, I didn't think were anything incredible. Like the drop was just not good, but even the build-up was just like, you feel like you could have tweaked this a little more. You could have spent a little more time on this. It's just underwhelming across the board, honestly. But it's at least a good idea to start with.
Yeah, no.
Then after that is the first good track.
Hey!
Propane Nightmares Grabbitz remix.
I will say this is my favorite remix on the project.
Yeah, the Propane Nightmares one, I like how Grabbitz like actually covered the song. He recorded his own vocals. He added his own drop that wasn't bad. It obviously wasn't as good as the original, but it's kind of hard.
The melody's definitely not as iconic on.
Yeah, you can't really. It's kind of hard to top that one, but
if you listen to like, I don't know how much of Grabbitz's originals you've listened to, but this is like a very similar vibe to Here With You Now, which was like his first single, at least the first drop on that song, and that was like one of my favorite originals by him. But I think the song has the same chord progression as the original song, but it uses a little bit of a different melody, so it carries that same vibe. His vocals are solid and works with his production style really nicely. I will say the major complaint I have about this album is I think sometimes Grabbitz tries to change things up with the vocals more than he really needs to, because if it had just been, I mean, I don't know if I would have loved this remix if it would have just grabbed the vocal from the original and pasted it over, but at some points I feel like there's the lyric where he changed Gunshot Bride to Shotgun Bride.
Yeah,
was,
I will admit that
kind of threw me off
but
a little bit.
It's just
like,
it doesn't really matter that much. I mean,
yeah, no, I don't think that takes away from the fact that
lyrics all that much.
Yeah, right. I mean, it threw me off a little bit at first, and I'm more used to it now. But the other thing that bugs me about it is, I think it's like in the pre-chorus of the song, he goes into like a swing mode. He's like, in a trail of fire, I know we will be free. He does that, and it's like, the song isn't swung, so it doesn't make sense to do that. I mean, it adds a little bit of variation, but I kind of wish he would have just done less. I
don't mind any of that, honestly. The Shotgun Bride did throw me off, but other than that, I mean, I just like the fact that he did cover it. It's one of the few remixes on here that I feel like he actually put genuine time and effort into it.
Oh, absolutely.
So then after that is Tarantula Icarus remix.
Yeah, we did already talk a little bit about the Devin Townsend remix, and I did want to mention something in regarding to that. I do agree with you that it doesn't bring a whole lot to the table. I know this is a lot of people's like favorite from the album, and I do appreciate why. Yeah, I do appreciate the instrumentation.
It's certainly well produced. I'll give him that. Yeah,
I do.
Like
I will say there is a little bit of an odd dichotomy between, like, I guess the Immersion was a very, even though I loved that album, it was a very synthetic album. And bringing the kind of like natural raw metal elements to this kind of has an odd dichotomy between the two, and I don't think they were mixed like super well on the song. I do like what Devin is doing here. I like the guitars and the drums and everything, but like as far as how well they they blend together with the original. I'm not crazy about it, but other than that, I do like the remix quite a bit.
I don't listen to a lot of metal, so I wouldn't really know. But yeah, the Tarantula remix, that was another one I'm like, nah. Yeah. It's kind of like the same thoughts on the 9,000 Miles one, but it's not as good. It's also kind of same thoughts like with the Knife Party one, was because it's got the Tarantula vocals and they're slowed down. And again, I don't like that. It just kind of throws that track off.
I'd say I was more or less like okay with this remix when it came out as a single, because I don't know, kind of similar with that 9,000 Miles remix, except in order of that the tracks actually came out. It was like the first one that didn't feel like offensively bad to me. But now that I'm hearing it in context with the rest of the songs, it's like it just doesn't feel that special.
Whenever they take just a stem from the track and slow it down, it's just, nah, dude, don't do that.
Yeah.
So then, the Pigboard Nerds remix of Witchcraft. I also got to talk about, kind of at the same time as the one right after it, the Matrix and Futurebound remix, because I think they're kind of similar. I personally liked the Matrix and Futurebound one a lot more. In fact, that one was probably my favorite on this album. It's because not only is it really well produced, I think, it sounded like they matched up the original with the Underworld song 2 Months Off. That's a song that I really like from like 2001, I want to say. And I don't know, this is the one track that I easily had the most fun listening to. But and the reason I bring that up with the Pigboard Nerds remix is that I felt like the Pigboard Nerds one was very similar, but a little less well produced. Like, you could have gone in the mastering booth and gone over it once more and it would have been great, but
see,
what are your thoughts?
In my book, I wasn't really crazy about either of these remixes. I think Pegboard Nerds must have played their Witchcraft remix live or something, and someone took a video of it and I came across it and I was like, oh, this is gonna sound like super cool. And then I ended up being really disappointed with it, ultimately for the same reason I was disappointed with the Knife Party remix. It's just the riff from the original, and there's like nothing special there. And I've been listening to the Pegboard Nerds like for a few years now, and I opened for them like last year. So it's like I'm really like into their music. I think the riff actually works really nicely when they worked it into the build-up, like the initial build-up in the song. But then when it gets to like the drop section, then it kind of just cuts back and goes back into the vocal, like the verse, and then it's like, okay, something might be going on here, and then the drop is just like the original riff again, and it's like, I think it could have worked really nicely if they would have used that original riff in the build-up and then just had like a signature style Pegboard Nerds like dubstep drop or like a hardcore kind of thing going on, but it just didn't really happen. And the Matrix and Futurebound remix, like I will say, it's a pretty excellent production, and I really like that it fits the vibe of the original song, as I was saying like earlier in this video. Right. The thing that bugs me about it is that the drop is just like the same melody, just like the same simple like da-na, da-na melody like over and over again. And it's like, yeah, other than that, I think it's a good remix, but it just got really like repetitive.
Yeah, that's fine, but and at least with the Pegboard Nerds one, have you heard the new single that they did with Knife Party the other day? Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was really good.
I enjoyed that song a lot. It's one of my favorite Knife Party tunes in a long time.
Yeah, I would say so too. It's yeah, at least that was good, so it makes up for this.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so then we have the Island AN21 remix, and all I have written for my notes here is the word no.
No, I can see why people don't really like this one. I mean, I'm not personally crazy about it. It's a nice like groovy little house remix, but like at the same time, have you heard Antoine's first remix of The Island?
There was another one?
Okay, so yeah, actually he did a remix with Steve Angelo and who else was there? It was Steve Angelo, Antoine, and Max Vangelli. And it was literally like the original The Island song. Like it was basically The Island
this
Part 1.
This one is not the original.
It's not. You should. Yeah. I would suggest you check that out, because that happened a few years ago. But it was The Island Part 1 essentially, but like just made into like a dance song.
And another thing about this one is that this should have been marked as a remix of The Island Part 2, because it sounds a lot more like Part 2. Yeah.
See, I don't know why these weren't both marked just as The Island instead of adding like the part 1, part 2. Because I know when people have remixed The Island in the past, they've just called it like The Island. I think Tiesto did a remix.
Yeah,
it's like The Island Tiesto.
Yeah, the 2 parts really aren't that different. It's not like you need to.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't hate this remix. At the same time, I really don't love it.
I don't hate it either. It's just. It's just there's no reason for me to ever listen to this one again. Yeah.
If I was like at a music festival or something and somebody played this, like I would probably get down to it. I would enjoy it and be able to like jump around and stuff. But it's like in terms of stuff I'm actually going to listen to in my personal time, no. Yeah. No.
Then Still Grey DJ Seinfeld remix. Don't really have anything to say about that one. It's cool, but nothing to discuss there.
Yeah. Kind of agree with you on that one. I don't really have a whole lot to say. And these last 3 tracks, I will say, these are the 3 Pendulum songs in this album that I'm definitely the least familiar with. That I've like actually, because I had never heard Vault before.
I actually hadn't either. Yeah, I'm much more familiar with Still Grey and Streamline because obviously Hold Your Color is my favorite Pendulum album, but whatever. Anyways, moving on from there, let's talk about that Vault remix, because out of all the collaborations, I never would have guessed this would happen in a million years.
Yeah, it's kind of odd, and I do enjoy it. I like this. I like this remix quite a bit. It's probably I'd probably say the Grabbitz remix is my favorite, and I'd probably say this is my second favorite. I really like the way Moby uses the riff, and I think he has some like strings going on in the song as well.
Yes, he does.
Some, as the iTunes reviewers say, orchestral strings.
Orchestral strings, yeah.
Yeah. I just really enjoyed this remix. It was like a solid idea. I think it's like a fresh drum and bass remix that uses a lot of old school elements and like. I don't listen to a lot of like Moby's new stuff, but like I do.
Yeah, Moby's new stuff doesn't sound anything like this.
Yeah, no,
Moby hasn't sounded like this since like the mid '90s. Though when I compared the original with this remix, I did kind of notice, okay, Moby didn't actually add that much to the original.
Yeah, no.
Like, he adds the strings, obviously, but those same strings are, like, in 90% of everything he's ever released, so... Yeah. I mean, it's a big highlight for me, if only for how little I expected it to happen, and I do think it is well-produced for what it is, so... I just don't think it's the best that Moby can do.
Yeah, whatever. I would agree with that at the same time.
And finally, the Streamline remix, and I didn't really even write anything down. I just said, eh. I'm sure that this Atlas guy is probably better with his own stuff, or... Yeah,
I'd say Atlas is one of the standout names, probably like one of my top 5 artists on the Mousetrap roster. I'd put Atlas underneath like No Mana and like Rez. But I don't know. This remix, I think more than anything, I don't think it's absolutely amazing, but I do like that it has a kind of weird beat. It like there are certain beats that feel like they should come in at certain spots and then they just don't happen. So it's interesting in that regard. And then I also like that it's sort of atmospheric too. It closes the album off in a really satisfying way, I think. And probably I don't like this as much as the Moby remix of Vault, but out of the songs that I'm not super familiar with Pendulum, this was the one that I'd say or one of the ones that I enjoyed.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. That's all the tracks.
That's all of them. And really only a few good ones. It's funny, though, that we ended up having like similar thoughts on every single track, basically.
Yeah.
that usually does not happen.
Nice to agree on this one, I would say. I will say, though, one thing that I have left to say is that even though I was basically underwhelmed by this album across the board, this didn't, like, kill my excitement of the idea of a more Pendulum material.
Oh, I totally agree.
I knew this was not going to be anything special. In fact, if you hadn't hit me up about this, I would not have listened to it at all. I know that Pendulum are not going to be this half-assed on their own stuff.
Yeah, no, so, I definitely agree with that. I'm really excited for whatever Pendulum's going to bring. And even so, like, you know, Rob had talked about not having the desire to make drum and bass music anymore and not having the desire to make, like, rock music mixed with drum and bass. It's like, no matter what they have and what they put together, I think Pendulum's going to have some solid stuff. I'm still really excited about.
Yeah, I agree. It's whatever Rob Swire plans on doing next, I'm looking forward to it. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, final ratings. I'm feeling a solid 5 on this. I think there's just enough good stuff on here to get away with a solid 5, but it's very on the fence on this one. It's just very right.
I'm probably feeling like a strong 4 to a light 4.5. Maybe like I felt very similar. Like there are a few like pretty solid remixes here. Obviously the Grabbitz one is the big standout for me. But most of the time I was just really underwhelmed with most of these remixes. So
so I guess basically we agree on this one.
Yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. It's always nice to get together with Tommy and be able to do some reviews. And if you're not already subscribed to him, definitely do. He's got some good stuff, and
of course this is all just our opinions. You can feel free to disagree with it. Like your thoughts, leave the comments in the comment thing down there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all for today. See you next time.
Peace.